Now, before heading to Texas, Trump told NBC News that the US will start selling weapons to Ukraine, with NATO allied countries footing the bill. Trump did not mention Patriot missile systems specifically, but he has recently said Kyiv would need Patriots to defend itself. During the interview, Trump also said he would be making a, quote, major announcement about Russia on Monday, but did not disclose further details. Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, meanwhile, has repeated his calls for defence systems and tougher sanctions on Russia after an overnight raid left 2 people dead. On social media, he said the vast majority of the more than 600 Russian drones and missiles were destroyed in the attack, which targeted cities across the country. Russia's current strategy is to overwhelm Ukrainian air defences with large numbers of drones. Ukraine is adapting its tactics as the nighttime onslaughts have become more frequent.
An overnight attack on Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Terror from the skies and the telltale roar of a Shahed-style drone. The Shahed is a drone Russia initially bought from Iran and is now making its own version of. A Shahed carrying a warhead costs between $50,000 and $80,000 to produce, as opposed to millions for cruise missiles. Now Russia is ramping up its production so that assaults with hundreds of drones are possible. They've also evolved the design. Earlier Shaheds flew low and were easy to shoot down with machine guns. Now they fly much higher and dive bomb vertically to hit their targets. Ukraine's air defenses are scrambling to react. It has sophisticated equipment like US-supplied Patriot missile batteries seen here in file footage. But the missiles to shoot down drones cost more than the drones themselves and are in increasingly short supply. Ukraine is also ramping up production of drones, using 3D printing to build interceptors meant to take down Shaheds at a fraction of their price. But Russia has a much bigger industrial base, putting Ukraine at a disadvantage. A new deal to produce Ukrainian weapons in Denmark may help even out the battlefield. But it comes as the US has diverted weapons meant for Ukraine to the Middle East. Another challenge for Kyiv. Since the war started, Ukraine has had to adapt constantly to keep Russia at bay. Unfortunately for Ukraine, the Russians have adapted too.
For more, we turn to military expert Marina Miron from King's College in London. Good to see you, Marina. We saw it in the report there. Russia is flooding Ukraine's skies with waves of drone attacks and missile strikes. If air defence is so expensive, how much is this becoming a war of economics at this point?
Good morning, Anthony. Well, what Russia is doing is creating a cost asymmetry, because what we have seen in the report are the Iran 2 drones, which cost between $50,000 and maybe $80,000. But what hasn't been mentioned is that Russia also produces a lot of decoys, which might be cheaper. So essentially, for Ukraine, that means on the radar, they will show up as targets. And so the Ukrainians have to decide with their scarce interceptor missiles which ones to shoot down. And an interceptor missile for Patriot system costs about $4 million. So you get a relation. Even if a real Iran is used, it's still a fraction of the cost of an interceptor missile. Additionally, normally you would send out 2 missiles. So you're sending out $8 million versus 50, 60, 80,000, whatever it is. Meaning that Ukraine is losing quite a lot of money trying to intercept these drones.
With that in mind, US President Donald Trump has signalled Ukraine will be getting more arms. We know NATO will be paying, but do we know specifically what's in this next delivery?
That's an interesting question because nobody knows. President Trump has promised to make a statement on Monday regarding Russia. From my understanding, at least Patriot interceptor missiles would be involved. We don't know if any additional Patriot batteries might be sent to Ukraine, but earlier Trump stressed that Ukraine would be getting defensive, or what he calls defensive weapons. That means probably no artillery shells and just limited to air defenses to help Ukraine defend its skies, because that was the main criticism of Russia and the long-range strikes that the Russian side has been conducting, but it didn't mention anything else.
Ukraine has one option that you've outlined, to shoot down Russian drones and missiles. The other option, I guess, is to interrupt production before they get off the ground. How effective have Ukraine's efforts been to slow that production down?
Well, if we judge by the sheer numbers, and there are different numbers floating around as far as Russian capability is concerned, Russia still can produce quite a lot of drones. Some reports state up to 1,000 drones a day of the Shahid-type drones. Therefore, yes, Ukraine has to do something. But unfortunately for Ukraine, it is not enough. It can damage one factory, but how many of such factories does Russia have? It is much easier for Russia, even so Ukraine has decentralized its production and its logistics, to damage Ukrainian capabilities. And that's the idea of those long-range strikes, including strikes on energy infrastructure. But for Ukraine, those isolated strikes are certainly not nice for Russia, but they are not going to make any major difference. And most importantly, they're not going to have an impact on the battlefield situation.
Marina Miron from King's College London, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.